One by Jimmy Fennick to make a two-tire strategy call, and another one by you to nurse the tires home. Great job today. How tough was it?
Real tough, and that last lap was ugly. I grew up watching Jeff Gordon do well here, and so to have him in my mirror, that is very special. I got to say that we're all thinking about Randy Fuller. He should be here right now. He's up in Hornell, New York, and we love you, buddy, and we're thinking of you. And another Ford, John Moore, his family in Springfield, Missouri, is having a tough time, too. This is awesome. We had a bunch of folks from Aflac here. We've got to thank Kellogg's and Cheese It, Aflac, Ford, Sprint for everything they do for us. Fastenal. I mean, this team has team's been working very hard. The whole group has, and it's really special to be a part of something like this.
How tricky were those last couple laps knowing that Gordon was coming and the tires were wearing out?
That's really tricky. I don't know what it looks like, but that's the best I've got. It almost wasn't good enough. So I love this road racing. I got to thank Boris Said, all my teammates, Mark Martin, everybody through the years who've helped me. The first time I went road racing testing, I backed it in the fence, and Jack Roush has been a big inspiration with all his road race success. This is just cool. I'm going to go get a Subway sandwich.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to NASCAST 500, the only NASCAR podcast that doesn't submit to Brian France's dictatorship. My name is Elizabeth Moxley, your hostess with the mostest, and joining with me is...
Philip Mathew.
Hey, Phil.
What's going on, Liz?
Nothing much. Just watching TV, and I should mute it. Hold on. Oh. Got it. All right, so that's muted. This is the first, and probably the only podcast that's by the fans for the fans. I mean, I've seen some podcasts controlled by the NASCAR media, and it's just, do I really want to listen to that? No. So I figured, what the heck, we're not controlled by them. It's our thoughts and our opinions.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've wanted. I've been working for a couple of websites, and one of them has a radio broadcast on a certain day, and they have a bunch of big guests, and they want to be PC and stay with so they don't offend anybody. At the end of the day, I've been a fan for 22 years of the sport, and I love racing in general. And I watched it when Dale Earnhardt was a dominant figure, when Jeff Gordon was coming on, and I've seen how the sport has gone downward as the years have gone on. So I'm glad to be a part of this podcast, to be a part of something where I can express my true opinions of the sport.
Yeah, I got into it around 2005 when my coworker introduced me to the sport. So I'm a kind of a newbie.
Well, that's the thing. Most of the telecasts these days, they make it they put it towards somebody who was coming in post from 2001 on, and it just worked out. What happened? The first race they had on Fox was the day that Earnhardt passed away, and then that kind of brought it all the way downward from there. Before that, the telecasts were great. You had to go to different channels to watch it, but you never had any bias. I mean, yeah, you had Ned Jarrett occasionally rooting for his son, but at the end of the day, it's his son. And it was better to watch. They weren't talking down to you. They weren't putting in their own personal biases like Darrell Waltrip and his bull with Toyota and his being friends with Kyle Busch and being friends with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and this, that, and the other thing. And Larry McReynolds butchering the English language at every turn he possibly can, and Mike Joy having senility kick in every 5 minutes when he's on the telecast. That wasn't happening back in the day. It was more about the racing, and it was better racing too. But that's a whole other subject we'll get into here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I try to mute the TV as much as possible when Waltrip speaks. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ! One of these days, I want to just kick him in the balls. But but I saw him when I was in Dover, 2013. I saw him drive from the Hollywood Studios, where the track is, to I think the studio up top of the track.
Yeah.
He was in one of those golf carts. I really wanted to give him the finger, but my dad was there, so I couldn't do it. I'm sad. I'm sad.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you doing that. Of course, your dad is there. She can't really do that.
Yeah, I can't do that.
If I had my mom there, but I don't take my mom to races anymore because I'm an adult. So the fact of the matter is, he's such a douche, and it's unbelievable. I mean, the word douche isn't used very often anymore, but him and his fruity brother epitomize what that is, and I mean, he's terrible. And then his brother has bias because of he owns a team, and oh god, this podcast could go off a tangent real quick if you get me started on certain people.
Yeah.
So let's get into the topics of this week.
All right, Sonoma. You know, I gotta be really honest with you. I am not a fan of road course races. I can tell you why. It's just boring. It's like going right. You gotta make a right, another right turn. It's like, oh.
Well, I disagree with you on that because road course racing, the presentation of it doesn't help. But the fact of the matter is, I've been a racing fan for that long, and I've watched road racing. And the fact is, when you see good road racing, which what Sunday's race definitely wasn't, outside of when AJ Allmendinger was basically dominating, which was the first half of the race until the pit crew, and then all the pit strategies went to hell, and then he got turned by Earnhardt into the wall, which wasn't the first example of him doing that.
I saw clips of that because I work on Sundays and I don't get to watch the race, so I have to go on YouTube to find some good clips of the outcomes.
Yeah, he turned him coming off of 11 and put him in the wall, and that basically ended AJ's day. He had one of the best cars. I mean, outside of Harvick, AJ had one of the best cars. All the Hendrick cars, as per usual, as per the last 2 months, basically, it's been a Hendrick benefit. Every race, one Hendrick car is always dominating, whether it's mostly Johnson, Gordon's been there, Earnhardt somehow or another won another race, which is a miracle in itself. That was basically, Brad gave that one away at Pocono, but the thing is, AJ had a chance to win, and they put in a lot of effort into that race, and I'm sure JTG Doherty is sitting there this week thinking about what might have been, because they really could have won that race and locked themselves into the chase. But going back to the further point, I love road racing. I mean, being a fan of the drivers that I've been a fan of, whether it was Davey Allison or Ernie Irvin, or currently my favorite driver, he's one of the best road racers ever. It's not Jeff Gordon. So you could basically figure out if it isn't Jeff Gordon, who's the second best driver ever on road courses. But he's been great on road courses, and he came from way in the back only to screw up late in the race. And so the fact is, I've had drivers that are good. If your driver is not good at road racing, if somebody's an Earnhardt fan, I fully understand why they don't like road racing.
Which I was impressed with Earnhardt's coming in third, because he's never good at road courses.
Yeah, and in his case, that's as much to do with Steve Letarte, going and throwing caution to the wind for everything, because he's done. And after this year, Steve Letarte is going to be an announcer, and he knows it. So, and Earnhardt knows that he's not that good to begin with, and if he goes and doesn't make it happen this year, it's going to be very hard for him to get another relationship like he has with Letarte, which is basically the closest thing he's had to when he was with his uncle when he was winning races regularly. So he had to pit 5 times, which usually for a road course is almost impossible to do and get back up there. But the tires were falling off all day. For once, Goodyear made a tire that fell off but didn't blow out, and the tire fell off so much where he had newer tires and was able to drive through. Of course, he also used up AJ and Matt Kenseth in the process to get up there.
Poor Matt. He was having a good day. Sort of.
Yeah, my buddy, sort of. For him, he's terrible at road courses. He'll tell you that. My buddy, my co-worker, he's a diehard Matt Kenseth fan. He's like, that's one of those races I don't watch because Matt always gets this bad attitude, and he was running really well. He was the best of the Gibbs cars, I think, because Kyle got into somebody earlier in the race. He turned Brad Keselowski,
Brad
and then he fell back.
Brad had a shitty car. Come on.
Brad wasn't running well then, and the fact of the matter is, I think he would have been able to eke out a top 15 out of that race. But when he got turned, it ended up becoming just a hold on and try to get whatever you can get, and he got a 19th place finish out of it. Yeah. But Kyle didn't have anything. Denny was nowhere to be found. So Matt had his best car he's ever had on a road course, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. just put him in the fence and rode off the whole entire car. And he had that stupid "woe is me" response like he did at Dover back in '98 when he spun Matt Kenseth coming off of 2 in a Busch race, and he wrecked him to win. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that. He's a friend of mine." I mean, you're an idiot. Just shut up. You wrecked Matt Kenseth. You made it obvious. You won the race. Just admit it, but you can't do it. It's kind of like Carl Edwards, who ended up winning the race.
Which I thought it was a good couple of laps. I like Carl. I mean, Carl doesn't bother me.
I mean, Carl. Whatever. He puts on the goody two shoes. I'm a great guy. I'm this humble guy from Missouri, and I guess that's the truth in a sense because he came from Missouri. He had nothing in terms of a career, and he drove the Mittler brothers truck a couple times, and Jack Roush saw him and loved him, and ever since then he's been a Roush racing guy, and Ford has basically put all their eggs in his basket, and it's not really worked out so well. And now with Brad there as a champion, they've kind of split the difference, and they kind of went with a little bit of Brad, a little bit of Carl, because the fact is Brad wins races consistently. He's driving a car a car that gets a lot of attention with the beer sponsor, and then Carl is a good guy, but he has plenty of instances where he basically has like a dual personality, where he'll go and turn somebody into the wall, and that's something where, that's my personal thing with Carl. 1 minute he'll be, "Oh, I'm a nice guy," and the next thing you know, he'll go and turn somebody in the fence at 160 or 180 miles an hour and not have any remorse, which is just insane. He's one of the closest things to a wrestler that we have too in the sport as well. So he that's where I get the Road Rage nickname from, because they always put him in all those magazines like he's all jacked up and stuff. So I figure he's on something, because he has to be on some meds for the kind of driving he's done at times in his career. But I give him credit for holding on to that win, because Jeff Gordon had a way better car. He just had not enough time there. He could have dumped him if he really wanted to. The old Jeff Gordon would have dumped him in that spot. But current day Jeff Gordon, who's the points leader and wants to just maintain, he held back and he took the second place finish.
You know who Carl Edwards looks like?
Who?
Jim Bob Duggar.
That's a good one.
Except he has 17 kids less.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, that's true. Because he only has 2. He may have more with the doctor. That's another thing. That doctor, his wife, has probably kept him in line, because he wasn't really doing. His doctor wife's probably kept him in line, because she probably told him, "You keep on doing that stuff and you get injured, I'm not sitting here doing any work on you." She probably threatened him, and he's a goody two shoes guy. He probably got back in his place. It's kind of like Kevin and Delana and some of them other ones, but
I can't stand Delana.
Yeah, well, Delana, as Max Pappas likes to call her. That's another, Delana. Yeah, she ain't bad. To me, I have no problem looking at her, but at the end of the day, in terms of her, sorry, that's the phone going off right next to me,
You still have a home phone?
Yeah, I live at home. So.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah, so we.
Yeah, stupid economy.
Yeah, that's part of the thing, but we digressed off of the point. The point is, I enjoy road racing, but I don't like Infineon or Sears Point or Sonoma or whatever whatever Brutons decide to name it now. I don't like that track, especially in the current form, because it basically allows people to drive like morons and get away with it. Earnhardt basically drove through 2 people and finished 3rd, and nobody could make any retaliation. There's other guys that got dumped during the day, couldn't do anything about it. At Watkins Glen, it's a faster track, it's more flowing. You have to have more, more attachments, as David Hobbs did, to go and drive at Watkins Glen. At Sonoma, it's a lot of hard braking, slow, plodding. If you get a lead, you're probably going to get away. So the fact is, I would say it's no different watching Infineon or Sonoma than it is to watch any 1.5 mile race, because they get spread out. There's nothing going on. The announcers have nothing to say, so they just repeat themselves over and over again, like Larry McReynolds, and they just say nonsense. And that's really what the race was on Sunday. I watched in and out on Ice State, but then also they went to commercial every 3 laps. So
that's why I fucking hate TNN with passion. 5 minutes, they're racing for 5 minutes, then go on commercial, then they come back for 2 minutes, they go back to commercial. It's just, I'm very glad NBC's taking over next year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Fox is as bad as Fox is the worst of the whole bunch, because they figure out a way to kill any sport that they cover. They bring it down to a level that's so low, the lowest common denominator, that it's either you're going to kill, you want to throw something through the TV, or you just like it because it talks to you. And to me, I hate watching Fox. I have to put it on mute half the time, because all the people in the booth and the stupid Hollywood Hotel all should be fired. And in the same way, Adam Alexander is one of the worst play-by-play announcers I've ever heard in my life. Look, at the end of the day, I did play-by-play announcing, and I understand for basketball and volleyball in my career, and so I knew that I know how difficult it is. I mean, but he's just clueless. He has no clue whatsoever what's going on. And then Kyle Petty, he's a nice guy and all, and I know what he's went through in his life, but at the end of the day, he likes to hear himself speak. So at the end of the day, he could add a lot to the process, because he's coming back from the old days, back in the 70s, and his dad and all this, but he doesn't. And then Wally, I never know why Wally Dallenbach does NASCAR telecasts, because he never was good in a stock car. The only times he was ever good in a cup car were on road courses. And otherwise, he's just useless. He's a good IndyCar announcer, I'll give him that. He's really good on NBC Sports Network. But the announcing is just brutal. And ESPN is already showing the signs of their mailing it in. When we're coming on a few weeks from now, they're going to start doing the final year of showing Cup again, and this time it's for good. I don't think ESPN's ever going to take it back again, because they're so busy covering LeBron James and what he ate this morning, and what.
Hey, LeBron James is leaving the Heat, so he's just
Johnny Manziel, who he had sex with, and all that stuff.
I hope nobody from the NBA hires him, but nevertheless. I don't like Fox, period. I don't like the network Fox. I don't like the Fox News. I don't like Fox Sports 1. I don't like FX. I try to avoid the channel as much as possible. But then again, I'm a big Simpsons and Bob's Burgers fan, so unfortunately I have to watch it.
Yeah, there's good. That's the thing. The one thing they do have is good programming, like original programming. But otherwise, everything else that's involved, like FX is good because Louis. I like Louis. So it's like there's other shows on FX I've watched previously, but otherwise, like the sports coverage is beyond. It goes above and beyond to a level of, it brings it down so low. And now they're going to have half the season, and NBC is going to come in. They're getting their second chance at it because they bagged it so bad the first time. But now they have NBC Sports Network, so they're going to be able to put more original programming on there. They have Rick Allen, who has grown on me over the years. He's become less annoying. Gone on. It probably helps that he has to work with Michael Waltrip, so no matter what, he won't that annoying.
douchebag.
Yeah, he's not only is he a fruitcake, but he's one of the most annoying people on earth. He was a terrible race car driver. He's an even worse announcer, and he ain't a good owner either. Fact is, he brought Hoffman to bail him out, or else there wouldn't be any Michael Waltrip racing. He'd be busy flipping his frickin' SUV over into a tree after doing a DWI like he did a few years ago. He'd be doing the same nonsense. He'd still be driving around hitting fences every week if it weren't for Rob Kaufman.
I have a confession to make. I read his autobiography.
Michael's?
Yes.
Wow, that have you used it as toilet paper?
Not really. I donated to the library, my local library, but he's.
Oh, that's good.
He acted that book. I was reading the book, and he acted like a pompous jackass.
Yeah, he basically used the late Dale Earnhardt and the truck race that he ended up winning after Spiller fell off, and a couple other things to go and promote the book, and he's sort of a gem of a person. At the end of the day, he's a scumbag, and he's not a. Most regular people don't like Michael Waltrip. I don't know many people in the sport. Most people in the sport aren't going to go and sell like Michael Waltrip because he's there and Toyota. Like, the only people that may tolerate him, I don't even know who would like Michael Waltrip other than his kids, really. I really don't know who else would like Michael Waltrip because he's really douchey, and he lowers everything down to a level where you just want to throw something to the TV, and that's when I get that aggravated. It's like I'm trying to watch a race, you know. It's my relaxation. I work I work all week. I want to enjoy something that I've enjoyed most of my life. Then I see him come on, and I want to say and turn it off.
You know, I tweeted to Rodney Childress I think a couple months ago, and asked him, "Is Michael Waltrip an asshole in real life?" He goes, "No, he's a very nice guy." Like, yeah, okay.
Well, Rodney Childress is not going to go and say anything bad about anybody. Heck, he has to work with Kevin Harvick now. So the fact of the matter is, he's not going to say anything mean about anybody. And the fact is, Rodney Childress got his first big shot to go and work as a crew chief. Understand him, and he has to work in the sport. So he's not going to go and downgrade Michael Waltrip. On the other hand, whether do I really believe he believes that? I don't know. I don't think he's going to say it one way or the other. I don't think Rodney Childress really cares. Now he works for Stuart Haas. He left. There's a reason why he left Michael Waltrip Racing. It's not just because Stuart Haas gave him this great opportunity. He gets to work with Kevin Harvick. He gets to win races. They've been the fastest car every race, basically, outside of a couple of races. They should have won 5-6 races this year, and Sunday was yet another example.
Well, I have the results on my computer. Kurt Busch, 12th. Let's see. Danica Patrick. Oh, Princess Sparkle Pony, how much we love you. Not. She was in 18th. Tony Stewart, 19th. Harvick, 20th.
Yeah, Kurt Busch had a good car, one of the best cars. He qualified well, and then whatever happened with strategy, it didn't work out in his favor. And Daniel Knost and all, it didn't work out for them. And then number 10, she was just out there. She basically fell back into the 20s, and with all the carnage that happened in front of her, she finished 18th.
Yeah, she's a...
That's a whole other story. That could be a whole podcast for us once we get more into it, but she is not good, and she's a waste of time, and that's another reason why I hate Fox. Make anything that she does out to be the greatest thing that's done by a female. Last time I checked the NBA draw, there were women winning regularly in every class, and women have been doing that for years. In IndyCar racing, women were allowed and basically accepted a long time before NASCAR. NASCAR, they've never really accepted a woman driver, even ones that could drive or can drive, like Johanna Long, for example, who can't get a sponsor, but she could drive the wheels off of the car.
But she doesn't have sponsorship. That's why she's in a crappy car with crappy sponsorship with a crappy team.
Well, now she does have a ride at all anymore. Really, that's the thing. That she's been struggling to find a ride now because what is it now? The 70 car is run by Derek Cope, who's a total furniture mover, and but yeah, she sucks. And then Tony got a speeding penalty again for probably the third or fourth time this year, and I don't know why that would be the case. What his deal is. I understand it happening once, but when it happens this many times, you have to wonder where his head is at to get that many speeding penalties, because it's not like they've had great calls for most of the year. So to throw away a possible top 10 finish when you're 20 plus in the out top 20 in points is that's just brutal. And I wonder what the deal is with Smoke. The problem, the lamestream media is posting about how he got into it with Kyle Larson. The fact of the matter is Kyle Larson with blocking. Kyle Larson's going to drive hard, and at the end of the day, he sees a lot of himself in Kyle Larson because that's the closest between Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart. You combine the two of them, their best attributes. That's what Kyle Larson is. So he got pissed about it because he gets pissed about this blocking business. But then any person that wants to bring it up can go and say, Tony went and blocked Michael Waltrip and Casey Mears or whatever at Talladega a few years ago, flipped over and wrecked half the field in the last lap. You can say, well, it's timing, whether it's this, that. It's blocking. So that's a whole other thing. He's not focused, I don't think. And Harvick got involved in the wreck because of a bad stop.
I think
again.
Clint Boyer hit him.
No,
yeah.
Clint Boyer got spun after getting hit by Jimmy Johnson, I think, or
God.
a tire went down, and then his left rear tire went down, and then whoever was behind him basically just used Clint Boyer up, turned him around, and Kevin Harvick, Tony was in front of Kevin, Tony went left, Kevin went straight into him, destroyed the whole front end of his number 4 car, and that was the end of the day for him.
Yeah, speaking of Jimmy, he was in 7th, and thank God he did not win this.
Yeah,
It's like, he wins Charlotte, wins Dover, then he wins Michigan. I'm like saying to myself, no, please, no.
Yeah, and it works. It's kind of, it makes sense, because when I stop watching races is usually when he dominates. So I really don't watch those races. So it may work out that there might be times when I'll have to go on YouTube just like you, because I won't watch because when he wins races, it's usually a total snooze fest. Which,
he's a fucking robot. He acts like a fucking robot paid by Brian France and his cronies.
Whether it's Brian France and his cronies, he's been a Chevy. He's been Chevy's golden boy for 20 plus years. He was doing it when he was driving Mickey Thompson stadium trucks in all over the country when they had that going on in the 80s and 90s. He was doing it in ASA when he drove for the Herzogs. And then when Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick and I forget who else said that they saw Jimmy Johnson. They're like, oh, he could be the next big thing. He's basically what Jeff Gordon would have been if he had stayed with Ray Evernham.
But at least Jeff Gordon loves the sport and not him. I don't see any passion for Jimmy in this sport. When he drives and gets interviews, I don't see any passion, any gratitude, or nothing. And that's what go ahead.
With Jimmy, his thing is he comes off as, and it's crazy because he comes off as this like ice cold guy because he's very PC. He's their president, I think, today. Accepting something, for some award, something with the president, and he plays the part.
I hope Obama has sanitizer on him.
Oh man!
I love Obama, but I'm a big libertarian, so go ahead and make fun of me. But I think Obama's getting sick of seeing Jimmy Johnson at the White House.
Yeah, I mean the best one was when Tony won the championship in 2011, and he actually kind of joked around and with Tony. We played around, and the fact is Tony's red state, like a conservative guy, as conservative as you're going to get from Indiana, and then you got Jimmy Johnson, he's from California, and I don't know what his leanings are. I really don't care. At the end of the day, I'm on pages with these people on social media, and all they do is post their leanings. Look, politics, one way or the other. There's one religion for me. My religion, and I have my religion. I told it, but at the end of the day, I don't have any politics. When racing's on, it's racing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. And with Johnson, look, Johnson's going to keep on winning as long as Chad Knaus is around because they drive for the chosen team, the chosen manufacturer. It's never going to end until, either Knaus decides to bail, whether Jimmy Johnson decides he gets bored and he wants to hang out with his kids. Whichever way it goes, it's not going to end anytime soon. So, unfortunately for most fans, for most people, that it's not going to, we just have to, and the thing is, eventually, it'll be appreciated. It's the same way as when Earnhardt was winning all the time, people hated it, a great amount of people hated it, and then everyone appreciated it once it went away. And it's the same way with Gordon. There are people that'll never like Jeff Gordon. And I didn't like Jeff Gordon for a long time, but at the end of the day, I have a buddy who's a diehard fan, and I respect the guy because he's one of the greatest racers I've ever seen in my life. There's people who grew up in the 50s and 60s. They got to watch.
Hello? You there?
Yeah.
Huh? Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. All right. With Jeff Gordon, he's one of the greatest of all time, and honestly, if it's going to end up between him and Jimmy Johnson or other like Kevin Harvick, I picked Harvick to win the championship this year, but I honestly want to see Jeff Gordon or somebody, as long as it's not Johnson, because one of the many reasons why the ratings are going down in this sport is because the attention spans of people now are much less than they were 10, 15 years ago. And you can get all your information on social media, so you don't even have to watch the race.
Exactly.
All the lame streamers sit there and watch the race and tell you everything that's going on.
Exactly. Now, Jamie Murray placed in fourth, which is okay because he won the pole and he did a good job.
Yeah, Jamie is a solid road racer. He's an underrated road racer. He's he won 10 poles, 3 of them are on road courses. And the Ganassi team has been really good this year. Jamie won the All-Star race. Kyle Larson is going to win Rookie of the Year. And Chip Ganassi stole that guy because every team in this sport would have wanted young money, and he got him, and he's got him for the long haul. And that kid could drive the wheels off of he could drive a wheelbarrow and beat some of those guys out there on the circuit. He's that good. And he's
going to become a daddy. Congrats, Kyle and Caitlin.
Yeah, that's just crazy because he doesn't look a day over 14 years old, and you wouldn't swear he could drink either. But I don't know
his first house too, so.
Yeah, he just bought his first house.
That's good for him.
I don't know if he owns a razor either, but the fact of the matter, it is young money. He's going to be a daddy, and kid's going to need new shoes, and he's going to win a race, I think, at some point this year. He may make the chase, too.
Yeah, that's just... Now we have Paul Menard, who's placed fifth.
Yeah. The RCR group hasn't been that great this year outside of Paul Menard, who fits the MO of RCR Rich Children's Racing.
Yes.
Because outside of No Neck.
Poor Ryan. I feel bad for him. He has to be in that part of that team.
I mean, but he's not really that good. So I mean, he has no neck and he has no personality. Jimmy Johnson has no personality. And I don't know what Ryan Newman's personality is. A piece of the cardboard box that I just received my latest iCast order in has more personality than Ryan Newman. and I have no problem. If he wants to go and fight me on that, that's fine.
I would have watched that.
Yeah, let's go post that for next week. Let's go and put the gauntlet down. I'll go and fight Ryan Newman. We both have the same body type. Yeah. I have a neck, but the fact is he's been consistent but not done much of anything. Austin Dillon is an absolute trash road racer, but he finished 15th, basically in the same way number 10 got an 18th place finish.
No, Martin Truex finished 15th.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Martin.
I like Truex. He lives a couple of towns away from me.
Yeah, Mayetta, New Jersey guy, and I've always rooted for him because of that. And he won nationwide titles for Earnhardt, and he came up the Cup. He won one race in Dover 7 years ago now, and then last year at Infineon I keep on calling it Infineon. I feel like Larry McReynolds. It's bad. But Sears Point, he won his first race in 7 years, and he would still be there if it weren't for Michael Waltrip and Clint Boyer and all the nonsense that went on at Richmond. He'd still be there. But in the end, it worked out for Chase Elliott because now he has a sponsor, and he'll be coming up to Cup for Hendrick Motorsports with a sponsor.
And you can thank Clint Boyer and Michael Waltrip for that.
That was a real gift to a lot of people. The person who got it the worst was basically Martin Truex, and Chad Johnson would have been available for Tony to hire if that hadn't happened. Whether I'm not going to speak on Johnston yet. We need to get to September, and we'll see if Tony actually has a win. If he has a win, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't have a win and he doesn't make the chase, then you have to wonder about the whole package. But the fact is that team, Martin Truex didn't deserve that. He would have made the chase on his own merit. The fact that the chase is 12 drivers and now 16 drivers is a joke in itself. But that's a whole other point.
Coming in 6th is Casey Kane, which I'm shocked because this past season, either he's been in the low 20s or DNFs.
Yeah, Kane is the weak link at Hendrick Motorsports. That usually works out that way, that one car at that team is usually bad. Basically, since Earnhardt has been there, it's been him. He's been pretty terrible. Until this year, he had won 2 races for the best team in NASCAR. And there have been guys like Joe Nemechek, Casey Mears, others that had done had been similar statistically and got fired. But because he sells trinkets and there's a lot of people who love his dad and just latch on to him hoping that some lightning will strike twice or something. And Rick Hendrick has this wet dream about having Dale Earnhardt. So he has the second best option. He keeps him around. And that's really what it is. It's not a performance-based thing. This is the first year where he's actually performed to a level which is relative to the equipment. And Candy Kane, he's been one of the most overrated drivers in NASCAR racing ever since he came in. And this year is yet another example of that. Yeah, it's the weak link team, the 5 team. He's basically driving for a job. After this year, it may or may not happen, but definitely after 15, he's not going to have a ride with Hendrick Motorsports because Chase Elliott is going to take some ride at Hendrick Motorsports, and it's not going to be the 48, and it's not going to be the 88. So either
it's
Jeff
definitely
Gordon,
not going to be a 24 because if he drives a 24, then there he's going to be shit on.
No, but the thing is with that, whatever car he takes over, they're going to change the number to 9, just as, his dad, his famous Hall of Fame father, Bill Elliott, he's going to drive the 9 car in Cup. They're going to go and change.
I hope Richard Petty fights for that. That's Marcus Ambrose's ride, which he can't hate, but still.
The fact is the owner owns the number, and it's called Richard Petty Motorsports. But really, Richard Petty is a face of the deal. That's all he is. He has a small amount of the percentage of the team. Andy Murstein and the Medallion Group owns that team. The numbers are owned by the owners. At the end of the day, the 9 has nothing. Marcus Ambrose is an Australian V8 Supercars champion.
Yes,
he ran there for years, and he was one of the great drivers. He's probably going back there next year, and with Penske. But that's a ongoing developing story. But the 9 number has nothing to do with Richard Petty. It has nothing to do with. It had something to do with Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott got the number 9 when he went to Evernham, when Evernham had a team before he ran it into the ground like the moron that he is. And the 9 number was Bill Elliott. Then they put Canyon in there because he ran Bill Elliott off, and the 9 number was with him. But the 9 number is most significant with Bill Elliott Melling Racing, and it's a family thing. At the end, all Rick Hendrick has to do is cut a check to the Medallion Group, and they'll go and run number 40 whatever, or run some other number. There's plenty of numbers, and the fact is Stanley Tools and DeWalt won't have a problem changing a number at the end of the day. The number that's significant with the Petty Group is the 43. That's always going to be the case. When Chase comes up in a couple of years, it's going to be the 9 car, or it's going to be the 5 car. One or the other. It's the 20. If he takes over for Jeff Gordon, it's going to be the 9 car. And if he takes over for Casey Kane,
it's going to be a 9 car.
It'll be the 5 or the 9 car. But in terms of Jeff Gordon, he'd have to change it because Jeff Gordon would be retiring. The 24 would basically put on the back burner. It would never be run in Cup again. And Rick Hendrick owns the number, so it's his choice.
I don't know why people would take any money from a convicted felon, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, that's true. But
Greg Biffle.
So is Gene Haas. So.
Well, at least Gene Haas went to prison and didn't fake cancer. But what are you going to... But
that's true. You're right about that. You're exactly right about that.
Greg Biffle came in finished 9th, which he's going to be staying a Roush. There's no way it's going to take him.
Yeah, I mean, the bug-eyed dummy, he's not a great road racer, but the Roush team has been pretty bad all year, but he finished 9th. Good strategy by Fuchsia and that whole group. They ran solid, and they have sponsorship with 3M over there. It's going to be either Edwards. It's a choice that one-eyed Jack has to make. It's either going to be Edwards or it's going to be Biffle. Biffle's in his 40s. He really has no options. His only option may be Michael Waltrip if he gets sponsorship for a 3rd team, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to expand to a 3rd team. Brett Moffitt has been running after New Hampshire in a couple of weeks. I don't think Jeff Burton's ever going to run another Cup race. So it's going to be Brett Moffitt, and I don't think he's ready to be a full-time driver.
No, he needs to stay nationwide. Nationwide or Camping World. So he can practice.
But the thing is, you could say the same about Larson. He only had 1 year of nationwide experience. He's got on the scene and done well, but then he's a natural talent. Yeah. Austin Dillon's run 2 years of nationwide, and he's been lost half the year. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won Rookie of the Year last year, and it's been absolute garbage. It doesn't help that his
There's a reason why he's absolute garbage. I like Ricky Stenhouse. I want Ricky Stenhouse to succeed. I really do. It's like he's focusing on his ugly-ass girlfriend, and that's what's going to kill his career. What he needs to do, if he wants to get in the top 10, is to cut that cow away, break up with her. I'm sorry, but if you're a Danica fan, you come to Brick, New Jersey. I'll defend my hatred for her. He needs to dump that cow, and focus on driving. He doesn't need that distraction from a driver, and I'm using that in quotation marks.
Yeah, you'd have the air quotes going for that one, because she's definitely not much of a driver. She may be a driver, but she's not a racer. That's what it's gotten into in terms of defining what she really is, other than being, well, I'm going to leave what I really call her usually to buddies of mine. I figure that's a little too harsh, but the fact is she's not she's basically a spokesmodel driving around in a elite NASCAR Sprint Cup car. And Clint Boyer had a choice of either going to Stuart Haas and driving that car or staying with Michael. And he decided he liked KY Kelly more than driving a real car. So he goes and stays with Michael. And Danica all of a sudden picked up the pace and had that miraculous 7th place at Kansas right after that happened, right after that announcement was made. Yeah. And then ever since then, she's went back to being what she is, which is a 28th to 35th place driver, driving with teams that have no funding, driving with the Timmy Hills of the world. And
Timmy Hill and the Lords of the Underworld, I like to call them. Dark hot with pain.
Because he's a nice kid, but he's not really that good. He's not really that good. And but yeah, the Bitful is staying because they need a veteran presence for Ricky, who will be on a make or break year next year, and T-Pain, who's finally going to get a full year deal with Advocare.
And the SIP's coming back.
Which is
good in a way.
Yeah, which is great because that's one of those numbers that I grew up when I first started watching. It was the 3, the 2 was Krusty Wallace, and the 6 was Mark Martin, and the 28 was first Davey, and then it became Ernie Irvin before Robert Yates screwed him over, and then there's those iconic numbers, and then of course you have the 24 came on the scene with Gordon, and then the 43 is always going to be there, the 21. Those are iconic numbers. So the 6 coming back, Mark Martin was glad to see it. He basically did a video introducing the number coming back, and I'm happy for Trevor because he's a nice kid and he drives hard. It's not like he doesn't care. He's a good person, and considering who he drives for, he helps their cause. And also with his illness, we don't know how many years Trevor Bayne's going to be able to drive, but the fact of the matter is the example he sets is good for the sport in general. His win in the Daytona 500 a couple of years ago was one of the great jobs ever done by a rookie, let alone wins I've seen, because he mastered the tandem draft and got Jeff Gordon to sign on and work with him, and that basically got him to victory lane, and he's never really gotten back to that point again, but he's a good kid and he's got a ton of talent. He wouldn't have been hired by both Michael, Waltrip, and Roush if he didn't have the talent. Now he's going to get a chance to show it next year in a Cup car.
Good for him. All right. The Penske boys did not have a good race. Joey Logano was in 16th and Brad was in 22nd, and I like both of them. I like Penske.
Yeah, I mean the way Penske's been running this year, that's a really bad weekend for them. Yeah. Joey Logano has been one of the best drivers this year. He's finally come on this. It's finally happened. It basically took 5 years for him to mature into the Cup Series, to develop himself and develop his persona. He's gotten into fights with a bunch of people. He hasn't been able. When he was with the 20 team, Greg Zipadelli never listened to anything he said, so he drove cars he never really could drive. And then they changed the crew chief to the current crew chief at the 20 car, and he won a race, and he had an outside chance for the chase. And then he went to Penske, got a fresh start, and it just opened everything up, because him and Brad work well together, and Brad is a competitor and he hates losing. And then you got Joey, who's just hungry, and both of them, they had a rough day. I mean, Brad got spun by Kyle, and Joey's won the pole at Sonoma before, but he didn't have a great day. But whatever. I mean, they maintained. They didn't have a bad finish. It wasn't a 42nd place finish or whatever like Matt Kenseth. And they're going to Kentucky, where both drivers are great at. And then I would count Michael McDowell in that Penske mix because basically he's an R&D driver for them with the Levine team. He finished 22nd, and he runs limited races. He's a good guy. I interviewed him for a few minutes last year at Pocono. Awesome guy. In terms of, he's in that Trevor Bayne mold where if he was given an opportunity in legitimate equipment, he could really show something. Because when he gets into a Gibbs Nationwide car, he runs pretty well. And he ran well on road courses. He's a professional road racer. He used to do it sports car racing back in the day before he became a NASCAR driver. So he finished 22nd in a underfunded car, R&D Penske effort. But in general, Kentucky this week, both the Penske cars will be back up where they are, basically battling Hendrick and up front.
Yeah, I think since Kentucky that we've been there, 2 Toyotas and a Ford one. So I am picking a Ford because they respond well on the track.
Yeah, the difference, what was it, last year they ran on Sunday afternoon because of rain. Matt Kenseth was on fire last year. He ended up winning 7 races. That was one of those 7 races.
Yes, I remember.
And he's due for a win, and they've struggled all year. And now he's coming off a 42nd place finish.
Yeah, that wasn't good. I felt so sorry for him.
I mean, he did nothing wrong. He'd have probably gotten the top 15 out of it, which he would have ran out of it. He would have signed for on Friday when they drove into Sonoma for a top 15. He got wrecked by Earnhardt, but I look for if TRD is going to show something, they need to start showing it now because Kyle is in the chase, Denny is in the chase. I assume one of the Michael Waltrip cars is going to be in the chase, whether it's Boyer or Vickers.
It's definitely going to be Boyers. I don't see Vickers anytime.
Because Vickers, I know, can win on flat tracks. He's been faster than Boyer a lot of times this year, but the thing is, Vickers has way worse luck than Boyer has. So if it was, I agree with you that if it was going to be one of those two, I would say lean towards Boyer because he has gotten into chases and actually done well. But Vickers made a run with Red Bull a few years ago, won a race, got into the chase, and that team was absolute crap. So the fact is, I wouldn't put it past the guy. The guy has battled through blood clots and battled through all these things. I wouldn't put it past him to get through, but the bigger point is Toyota is struggling with horsepower, and Hendrick and Chevy have got everybody for sure, but the only team that can compete with them is Penske. And when it comes to 1.5 milers, these Toyotas are going to have to start showing up if they really want a chance to win the championship. Because Dover, you guarantee, is a Jimmy Johnson win. Charlotte is a guaranteed Jimmy Johnson win. Kansas is a guaranteed Hendrick or a Penske win. You know, once you start eliminating, going race by race later on in the season, it starts getting to the point where it's going to be less and less likely for Toyotas to win and have a chance at a championship.
Because Toyotas are pieces of shit. So. Well,
Toyotas are the only ones of the 3 cars that they have in the series. That's the only one that's made in America.
But Jim, when I was in Dover last year, Jimmy Johnson was leading the most of the races until he got black flag for jumping the restart. Then when he was interviewing Pocono, like the pre-race interview, he just bitched about the restart for like hours and hours on end. I'm like,
yeah, I remember that because I was in the press room. One of the people that I am working for, who knows if it'll last, but at that she called me down to go and cover the race, and I was there. I was there when he was bitching and moaning about those restarts, and Juan Pablo Montoya came in right after and basically had the whole entire room rolling for a good 15 minutes because his press conference was, that's one thing. No matter how bad Juan Pablo was in a cup car, he's definitely a soundbite waiting to happen. and he was on fire. He basically what did he want me to do? He wanted me to stop. Like, that's the point. It's like Jimmy Johnson decided to jump a restart, and for once, the guy has a golden horseshoe up his butt. Has had a golden horseshoe up his butt since 2006. He had nothing bad. A bad race for Jimmy Johnson is 7th. Most people would give a nut to go and have a 7th-place average for 10 races or whatever he usually does. The fact is, nothing is bad in his life. His life, there's nothing bad about his life. He has the best team, best crew chief since Ray Evernham, the manufacturer in his back pocket that's in NASCAR's back pocket, the owner, the fat felon, who's the biggest owner in the sport. His wife is a model and she's hot. He has
she's
2
not.
kids.
She's anorexic. She needs to put a paper bag over her head. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I like to have something to grab onto. But the fact is, for Jimmy Johnson, he looks like a skateboard. She looks like a skateboarder. It all works together.
I can't wait for the day their kids release to tell all about his life. Chapter 1. Yeah. My daddy cheated. Chapter 2. My daddy and Uncle Chad had an affair. Chapter 3. Uncle Rick molested us. And there's going to be more secrets in that book.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I mean, definitely, because it would have started with Jeffy first, but it will go down with Jimmy Johnson as well. And yeah, you can.
You know, they should have done 2010 when Hendrick decided to switch all the crew chiefs. They should have put Chad with another driver and have either Gufferson or Letarte with Jimmy. They should have done that just to make it fair, but no.
Well, the thing is, this all goes back to what I was saying earlier with Jeff Gordon. The thing is, Rick Hendrick absolutely, he hasn't, outside of not paying taxes and faking cancer, one of the only things he's actually screwed up in his time as an owner was not keeping them together. Because Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham won 3 championships, 46 races, and they would have won way more. They would have been doing what Jimmy Johnson's doing right now with Chad Knaus. And the fact is, both of them got there. They both got, all cocky and said, I could be just as good without you. I could be just as good without you. Ray Evernham decided, I'm going to go and run the Dodge program. He's probably a main reason why Dodge got ran into the ground, because he did such a poor job with picking drivers and changes that he made. And then Jeff Gordon had different crew chiefs. Yeah, he won a championship with Robbie Loomis, but whoever his crew chief has been ever since Ray Evernham, whether it's Brian Weitzel, Robbie Loomis, Letarte, or Alan Gustafson, or whoever else there's been in that time, none of them have lived up to that. And that mistake is a main reason, because Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus were done after the 2005 season. And they have the quote-unquote milk and cookies meeting that they joke around about. That milk and cookies meeting that took place after the final race at Homestead when Tony won his 2nd Cup title was after Jimmy Johnson went into the fence, I think like 50 laps into the race, with a cut tire. And he said he had a cut tire. Chad told him to stay out. They had been having issues, and Rick said, "You're going to go and you're going to talk your problems out right here, and you're going to stay together." And ever since then, nobody has really done anything outside of Tony Stewart and Brad Keselowski. That's the only 2 guys that have won a championship ever since. Yeah. So, in the end, he's not breaking that up. That's sad for most of us, because when they hit a setup, it's a disaster to watch. It's impossible to watch. But he's not letting that go. They're going to stay together. They're going to win a bunch of championships. And people are going to say he's the greatest of all time. I'll never agree with it. But I'll say Jeff Gordon's better than no matter how many champions he has versus Johnson. I'll say Earnhardt's better than him.
You know what his biggest mistake was in 2012? Missing lug nut. That's what I'm going to say.
What was that?
You know what was his problem in 2012? Missing lug nut.
Yeah, that pit crew. The only thing that's really been an issue for Jimmy Johnson all these years is that pit crew. Because the fact is, everything else has been good, has been outstanding. That pit crew, which is interesting, since Kevin Harvick's one of the only people that could really give him a challenge this year, that pit crew is absolute garbage. And Kevin Harvick's, between Rodney Childers' inexperience in a big spot, because he's never had the crew chief in a tight situation like they're going to have to once they get into the chase. Kevin Harvick being who he is, and all the stuff that comes with that, and that pit crew, which has been a major factor in him losing at least two or he had a bad pit. Tony jumped him during that pit stop among other people. Bad pit stops. He had the fastest car. He couldn't catch Jeff Gordon. There's probably, again, he's lost so many races this year, and the ones that he's finished, and he's finished second or third, and he's just pissed. The fact is, he's pissed about finishing second. It comes off terrible. Because at the end of the day, he wasn't getting those finishes with Richard Childers. And he has the fastest car every week. So it comes off bad, and it's bad for that pit crew and their morale. Because at some point, that pit crew is just going to quit on him. And it's going to happen in the chase. And if it happens in the chase, he's screwed. And the fact is, they're not going to be able to pull the BS that Chad Knaus does every chase when his pit crew screws up. He's going to go and rent Jeff Gordon, or he's going to go and rent Candy Kings. He won't be able to do that because none of the crews on spots are all that great. The only one that might be halfway decent is for the one that can't even drive, which is ironic. But maybe they'll call that pit crew in, which is what they should do, really. If Tony and Gene Haas want a champion, they better go and get him a pit crew, and they better get him in line too, because in the end, him imploding is going to cost everybody, and it's just going to make it so much more easier for Jimmy and Jeff Gordon and Joey Logano, who I think are going to be the three other drivers who are left once you get to Homestead.
Yeah, I looked after hearing about how the chase is going to be working this year. I have no hope, but we'll discuss that once the chase season comes. But anyway, we're now the Gardner Denver 200 in the fired up by
Road America.
Yeah, Road America. Unfortunately, I did not watch this because I was working till 5, so I couldn't get any clips on YouTube. But I'll go over the who won. Brendan Gaughan. I hope I got that right.
It's Brendan Gaughan.
Okay.
Gaughan. It was a really interesting race. I could just go and recap it. Basically, they started in wet and dry conditions. If it was an actual road race and not a NASCAR road race, they would have started the race on wet tires. Instead, they basically started the race, waited for the track to dry out, so they started it on dry conditions. And Alex, the Canadian driver, IndyCar driver, driving for Penske, driving the Penske 22, usually driven by Cup driver Ryan Blaney, was on pole. He drove off. There was Penske made him. He was driving a 42 car. He got up there early and then had a mechanical, which just goes with his whole entire year. He's either crashed or had a mechanical or some problem virtually every race. It was basically Alex Tagliani was out there, and Sam Hornish. She was driving the Monster 54, which is usually Kyle Busch's car.
Yeah, that's
those two guys were in their own.
That's why I don't watch Nationwide.
In their own zip code.
That's why I don't.
Yeah,
watch Kyle Busch dominates that whole series, so I was like, we're not even worth it.
That's why it's a watchable race, because he wasn't there. When he's there, it's impossible. I don't watch, even though I like Kyle Larson. I miss Charlotte because Kyle Busch dominates at Charlotte. He didn't win that day, but Kyle Larson did. The thing is, those two guys dominated for most of the day. Started to rain, so then a bunch of different strategies started coming into play. They had to drive on wet tires, and nationwide and racing, there's a lot of wrecks. And also the fact that NASCAR doesn't know what a local yellow is.
Yeah.
Never has and never will. So it's a huge pet when it comes to road racing.
Can you explain to
with
people
NASCAR? There's spins.
Can you explain what a local yellow is? Because I don't even know what that is.
So local yellow means, yeah. So with in road racing, if there's an incident, let's just say on Sunday somebody spun out in coming off of turn 4, which is at the bottom end of the track, and they were off the racetrack. If they were off the racetrack out of the line, they'd let everybody drive by, and then once you get your car started, you go back to this way below yellow to say, oh, incident in this area, slow down, take caution, and then go back to racing. NASCAR thing is, if anybody spins out at any time, they'll just throw a yellow, no matter what. Because the fact is, they can't stand having spread out action, even though it's their fault that there's spread out action between the way they've arrowed these cars out and all these different things. They've screwed up the product themselves, but they go and all through the product. There was a debris caution in between lap 70 something. That was a complete should never been called, but it's a typical debris, like a phantom caution, and that's they call cautions for things that don't even be called for. It spins out, and they're able to get back, get the gear, and go again. It used to be they gave them 30 seconds to do it. Now they just hit the button no matter what. They just want to have the yellows, and they can bunch the field back up. So in terms of local yellows, especially at Road America, it's a 4-mile racetrack. It's one of the greatest road courses in the country and the world. It's a beautiful track, lots of hill elevation. I think cup racing would be awesome there because there's enough braking zones and there's enough places to pass where cup racing would be much better than the nationwide cars because they have more horsepower, more drivability. But they throw so many cautions. It takes 2.5 minutes of green to a green flag lap at America. So basically double or triple that when there's cautions. So then add rain into the mix. So it just became every race at Road America becomes this endurance race. It's basically 2 laps. And Brendan Gaughan had at least 3 incidents. He had 3 incidents. He had spun out. He ran off the track. He hit Reed in the door and bashed in the right side of his car. And he called himself a jackpot in victory because he thought he blew the race. But in the end, it worked out that he won. It was his first win in a nationwide car. It was his first win in 11 years. He hadn't won since winning in a truck. His own truck with his crew chief now, Shane Wilson, when he drove that team and was contending for the truck championship. He hadn't won in 11 years, so it was a big win for him. Alex Tagliani got pushed into the pits, got fueled up, got 4 tires, came from the absolute tail of the field to and used up Chase Elliott in the process. Now it's funny because Chase Elliott got bent out of shape about Alex Tagliani, and one of he's brought up, and he'd always honored me and him think a lot alike in that sense. It's like Chase Elliott basically ran identical when his first race at Mosport last year, and basically a lesser version of what Chase did to die because he spun and used them up. Chase was able to drive off, still finish in the top 5, and then he was crying and moaning on his TV interview, so he looked like a hypocrite.
Who, Chase Elliott?
But the fact is he had never run a road course race in a nationwide car, obviously. He finished top 5. He was there most of the day. He was around. He didn't get off the track or have any major problems. Regan Smith was behind him. He gained points. Be happy. Go on with your life. Go to Kentucky. You have a chance to win. Don't whine about freaking Alex Tagliani. You didn't get put in the sand. There's people who could have been put on. It's not like Jacques Villeneuve was driving in the race and put him off into the woods. So,
okay.
Brendan Gaughan, great story. Brendan Gaughan's story in his 98th race in the Nationwide Series. He's another one of those rich children, but the difference is his career is on the back end of his career. He's a good guy. He's just out there. Him winning a nationwide race is good for the series. And technically, was there. They weren't finished in the top 5, but he had issues of fuel as well.
Okay, so we have Kevin O'Connell in third. I don't know who he is, so.
Kevin O'Connell is a road racing. I don't know if he's is an American or Canadian. I'm not sure, but he's a road racing veteran. Rick Ware hired him. Rick Ware hired him to drive that 23 car, and he was on rails. He had a couple chances. He played the discussion card, and that's the best that team has ever finished in Nationwide Series. So that's a great run for him. He'll be back at Mid-Ohio and Watkins Glen or Watkins Glen, Ohio in August. That was great when the Rick controls that car.
Okay, we discussed Chase Elliott, J.J. Yeley, who...
His second one was especially.
Then we have Jeremy Clements.
Yeah, J.J. Yeley finished 4th, and that's and he's his claim to fame as being one of the guys who's ever won the USAC Triple Crown is Tony Stewart and a couple other guys, and he struggled. He never really got it in Cup, and he's driving, basically Starling Park type stuff, and he's driving.
Which they got rid of this year, but
funded and 28 cars. Yeah, it doesn't as Cup. It still exists nationwide. There's short field this week. I think it's 3 cars, 7 cars by lap, part lap 6 of a 50-lap race. So the start mark still exists in nationwide trucks. J.J. Yeley runs underfunded team. They're basically using old Penske guys. And that team, and to get a 4th place finish, it's just carnage at the end of these road races, especially nationwide. So he's a really good driver. He's just never really been able to do it at the Cup level. And nationwide, and he's done it pretty well. And getting a 4th place finish was indicative of that, considering the equipment, same as Kevin O'Connell.
Okay, we got Jeremy Clements, Andrew Lowry.
Jeremy Clements. Just run down the rest of the top 10 for me, because I don't remember.
Okay, Andrew Lowry, Landon Castle, who did double duty. Yeah. Elliot Sadler, who is I'm guessing the only Sadler brother with talent. And Mike Bliss.
That's debatable. I don't think either of them really have talent, but that's a whole other story.
Hermie can wrestle. I can tell you that.
Yeah, Hermie can book some cards, and him and that other roid rager Jeff Hammond were into the wrestling and stuff. But Andy Lally is a pro road racer and street luge competitor. So Andy Lally drives horses in the Tudor United Sports Car Championship, and he had to ask a bunch of people for money just so he could get into an underfunded ride. Get into that 55. Like, he raised money to get into that car. So, getting a 7th-place finish. That team hasn't run that well all year. That's the 55 Eva Motorsport car. They don't really run that well usually. So that was a big run for them. Jeremy Clemens is a typical, independent, one of the last of a dying breed. He runs his own stuff out of a shop in South Carolina. He's a good guy. He drove for Gibbs for a little while, but never really got anywhere. And he drove an ARCA, and he's pretty solid. He's a feel-good story, like much more of a feel-good than Brendan Gaughan, because Brendan Gaughan's got money and he can drive. The fact is, there's no money there. He's basically running race to race, running with whatever he can get. To get a top 5 finish out of that race is huge for Jeremy Clemens. Elliott Sadler's running for the championship. I don't know how he keeps employment, because he's one of the most mediocre drivers I've ever seen, and he's goofy looking. And what was the...
Mike Bliss?
That's Mike Bliss is another underfunded team with TriStar Motorsports. He's won nationwide races before. He's a USAC guy, veteran guy, Truck Series champion back in the day. But now he drives for Mark Smith, and that team, to get a top 10 finish, that's the road races. They always talk, all these stupid announcers talk about opportunity. It's an opportunity for the smaller teams, because they're basically going to stay on the track. They're going to run their own race. And as the top 10 shows, most of those people are in underfunded equipment that wouldn't sniff the top 15 most weeks, and they were in the top 10.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Well, there was no Camping World this week, so. And I enjoy those truck
Camping World
races.
Truck Series is going to run this week. It's going to be a triple header at Kentucky. So the Thursday night is the trucks, and then
I gotta
Friday
work that night, so I'm so sad.
You got to work?
I gotta work.
Yeah, I'll be able to get home in time to go and watch the races on Thursday and Friday, thankfully.
I usually work till like 11 o'clock.
Well, you're not going to miss anything Thursday and Friday anyway, because Kyle Busch is probably going to win both of those races.
Yeah,
so that's not a real big deal.
Let me see who's going to be competing in the Camping World. See, Darrell Wallace Jr., Joe Nemechek. He's been his son's been impressing me lately.
Well, John Hunter is a real talent, and basically the only thing that's kept Joe Nemechek around, because when he was driving that 66 car, he wasn't doing anything in it. The only thing that's keeping him around is basically to make sure that his son gets signed by somebody, or they're able to get funding for him, because that kid can drive. And he proved it before he had his issues at Gateway. John Hunter is a real talent, one of the best young guys out there. He keeps it clean. He runs strong every race. He hasn't done anything to ruffle any feathers. He hasn't gotten a lot of wrecks. And he's basically kept his dad going. There's an interview they had a couple weeks ago on the pre-race for the trucks, how much John Hunter has made a difference in Joe's life as a racer, as much, not just being a father and son. But that's a great story. I think John Hunter is going to run everything, the smaller tracks and the road courses, and Joe's going to run all the 1.5 milers above 1.25 miles. So this is the most competitive equipment Joe Nemechek's been in a long time. So he's been running well. And Darrell Wallace is coming off a win.
Yeah,
he's one of the more popular drivers out there, and he's a good. He can drive for sure. He's been a Joe Gibbs development driver for a few years, and I'm waiting for more of the same. This is his second win. I want to see how he responds here at a 1.5 miler with his boss running. Will he be able to compete with his boss? Will he be able to beat him? Because that would be a bigger deal winning one of those races. And because Matt Crafton, the Thor Sport guys, Matt Crafton and Johnny Sauter are guys to beat this year, especially Crafton, defending series champion, winner at Martinsville and Texas. He dominated at Texas. Basically, the only person that at this point, before practice even starts, the only person I see stopping Kyle Busch from winning on Thursday night is Crafton. But, Sauter's always good on the 1.5 milers, and Ron Hornaday, he's a wily veteran. He's been knocking on the door to win a race, and he's another guy, Ryan Blaney, driving for Brad. He's been flirting with victory lane, but hasn't gotten there. He's basically, biding his time because he's going to be driving next year in the Nationwide Series, I think, and because he's the next guy that's going to be driving a Penske Cup car here in the next probably 2 to 3 years. Is Ron Blaney, and that's another example of father sticking around. Is Dave Blaney basically wants to stick around so he can go and race his son in a Cup car or whatever, and then
that's not going to
Dave
happen.
Blaney. Well, he can, because as long as he qualifies one of these races, he'll get to race them, and then that'll be the end of it. And Dave Blaney goes back to running the sprinters, which I saw him at New Egypt. He was running a World of Outlaws race, and that's his passion. That's the family business. Him and his brother are great sprint car drivers, and Ryan's a Cup driver in waiting.
Yeah. I'm on the entry list right now. Kyle Busch is in it.
Yeah, he's running the triple because they're running all 3 races at the same track, and he's kept on posting on his social media all the pictures of his truck and the car and all that nonsense. So he's probably going to win Thursday and Friday. There's not as many people he has to beat on Thursday. Friday, I don't know who's driving the 22 car for Penske. I don't know who's driving the 5 car for Junior Motorsports. Those are 2 Cup guys usually. And then you add Regan Smith and Chase Elliott as regulars who have been there most of the year. There's probably maybe 5 to 7 guys that could really. Kyle Larson's going to be running. That'll be one of the guys that could give Kyle Busch a challenge. Ty Dillon is another guy this week, because the Dillons have always done well at Kentucky Speedway. So that would be a dark horse selection for third Friday night is Ty Dillon, because he hasn't won yet, and they've been solid yet unspectacular this year with the 3 car compared to when his brother was driving the last couple of years. So.
All right. Should we get into questions?
Sure.
All right. Sam Medina wants to know, should Jeff Gordon be president of the United States? If Steve Letarte is the running mate, then yes, I think he should be president.
I want Chad Knaus to run for president, because that means that breaks up Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus, personally. And I think because he knows how to cheat and he knows how to work the gray areas, he'd probably be able to figure out ways to get some solutions to some of these problems that we have. Yeah. But yeah, sure, make Jeff Gordon the president. That'd be great. I don't care. It'd be better than what we've had for the past 16 years by the time we get to 2016 anyway.
All right, our boss, Chunky Larry, goes, how fast does Danica drive to get into 1955? I don't know. I don't know.
That's quite a question.
I don't even get it.
The better question, I don't know. The better question is, how fast does she drive to get to her next service job?
Oh.
But we'd have to ask Richard about that specifically, because he probably has to drive her there. That's my answer to her, to that question. And thanks, Chunky.
Right, go ahead.
No, I want to thank the man for the show and opportunity before we get off there.
Thank you, Chunky Larry. I mean, we wouldn't have a show without your support and everything, so. Our other co-host who couldn't be here, Barrett, he goes, can I be the Rihanna and read the mailbag? Yes, you can. Next episode.
Next week, sure.
Yeah, I hope your friend gets better. We love you. Sam Medina, again, he goes, how many laps does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
I can't believe you're reading some of these questions. Those are... Because it would be funny to read some of the stuff I posted, actually.
Yeah, we're going to do that in a second. But, questions, guys. I really like these questions, but I would like some serious questions, like, are we going to see another Chase this next year, or is Carl Edwards definitely going to JGR? Some of the questions like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love everybody on the geeksindustry.com, but some of the questions can be a little too inappropriate, but to each his own. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Let's answer that question. That question is another question that Danica could probably answer anyways, because she's had a few of those in her time. You could just ask Bobby Ray Hall or Michael Andretti or Tony Stewart or Richard Stenhouse, or just the list goes on. There's too many that can ask about that.
To answer Sam's question, probably 200.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to answer your. What performance enhancement drugs does Carl Edwards use to improve his mediocrity? Pot.
It would make sense he smokes pot, but and he's too ripped to do the harder stuff.
He probably
so
uses HGH or something.
He probably uses HGH and some of the stuff that Triple H and The Rock uses. That's what I was thinking, because I posted that and then I just saw I saw a visual of like how Triple H and going into wrestling now. We're doing the wrestling bit just to go from what Triple H and The Rock looked like back when I watched regularly when I was in middle school and high school to what they are now, where their necks are their heads are like they have 45-pound heads and their necks are like a foot wide. Like that's the kind of stuff that Carl does. It has nothing to do with Subway chicken teriyaki.
I'm not a big fan of Subway. I'm a Jersey Mike's person.
We have Tasties over here, and Tasties is great.
I want to try.
I like that.
I wish Jimmy John's opened to my neck of the woods, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's one. I just found out there's a Jimmy John's relatively close by, but I don't really. I'm trying to avoid the fast food in general. I eat too much as it is.
Yeah. Will the Big Eye Dummy or Road Rage stay at Roush to run with T-Bane and Richard? We discussed this. It's going to be Greg.
Yeah, Greg is the Bug Eye Dummy is gonna stay with Trevor and Richard at Roush more than likely, just based on age.
Yeah. Does Tony Stewart like speeding tickets more or the Whopper? I think speeding tickets because didn't Burger King drop him once they started their own team?
Well, I don't think that means that he doesn't go there. But the fact is, he's gotten 4 speeding tickets. This is 4th time this year he's gotten caught for speeding, and it's been more recently when his cars have actually been good again, because he basically was out in the woods for the first 3-4 months of the season, and then once it gets to summer, he finally woke up from hibernation, and he gets speeding penalties. Every TNT race, I think he's gotten a speeding penalty, so that's 3 races. And Dover, so...
Does Brad K relate to Mr. Ed more than human life? Don't disrespect Brad. He's more of a champion than Johnson.
Yeah, I joke around about that because at the end of the day, I like Brad K, but it's just funny because
everybody calls him
so
Mr.
easy.
Ed. Yeah.
Because the Mr. Ed thing was first for Carl Edwards because he's like, aw shucks, all the time, and then they always put the picture of a horse. All these places, like they put a picture of a horse and then Brad. So I mean, they just kind of run with it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's not like Brad follows me, so it's not like it really matters.
Yeah, he doesn't follow me either. But is young now? is young money legal to drive, drink, or have kids? And you're talking about Kyle Larson in this
Kyle
question.
Larson.
All right. Yeah, all three.
And yeah, I know. I was just joking because I was sitting at work, so I just was like ask questions. So I just started throwing out anything random,
right.
and I didn't think they were actually going to be read. So the fact they're being read is hilarious.
Yeah.
My stream of consciousness at work.
Those that listen to the geeksoftheindustry.com, the hashtag he that should never be mentioned, man. That's an inside joke. Just to let everybody know. A certain wrestling promoter, he makes an appearance on Mega Powers Radio, another part of the geeksoftheindustry.com show, and just annoys the hell out of one of the guests. So just want to let everybody know.
Nice.
Just for a record, I have ADT, so if he tries to come over to my house, the cops will be called and he will be shot.
Awesome.
All right. Do the Dylans insist on wearing cowboy hats all the time? Well, they are spoiled rich brats, so yeah. Well,
yeah, but no. I mean, the point is, do they wear it at all time? Like, do they wear it to bed? Do they wear it in the shower? Do they it's honestly, you'd swear that those hats are welded on their head.
They probably here's my question: How do they fit on their helmets?
Yeah, well, they don't. Well, they have to remove it for that. That is true. But the fact is, I forget which one of them has the forehead where you can land a 747 on. So,
I think
that's probably the reason why they wear them.
I think that would be time. Let's see, what else?
Both of them have huge foreheads.
Yeah. Well, Johnson, Gordon, or Candy Cane change gimmicks to Stardust? I think Kane, because Johnson and Gordon already have wins. And
yeah, I think Candy Cane would be most likely to he kind of looks like if he put on a little bulk, a little muscle, he probably could pull off being Cody Rhodes. So yeah, he could probably be Stardust.
I actually enjoy Stardust, but
yeah, I was just flipping channels and I saw that and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. That's how it made me stop changing the channel. That's how crazy that was. Like, they basically buried Cody Rhodes to the point where now he has to be Stardust.
Yeah.
He was the Intercontinental Champion and now he's Stardust.
Yeah. Well, I still enjoy it, but anyway, Michael Waltrip is fond of it, but who else in the sport is?
That's to be determined.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Michael Waltrip is a homo, but
yeah.
I mean, we can say it on this podcast. Nobody else is going to say it, but the way he behaves and the way he acts is like the stupidity in his commercials and the questionable behavior he's shown in his time. But other than that, it would be a big secret, I guess. It would be something worth investigating.
Well, when will somebody hire drivers based on talent instead of being nice? Never.
Yeah, well, that's become an issue more recently than because of the, number 10s of the world and, Rich Children's Racing and some of these other examples of teams just hiring because of sponsorship and stuff instead of driver talent. Because if that was the case, some of the best drivers that ever came along in the sport would have never came up because they never had a chance. And that's the sad part about what's going on with the sport as it is. One of the great things that BZF has done in his terrible reign as the man in charge of NASCAR, he basically destroyed the sport.
Yeah, his dad and grandfather are rolling in their graves right now.
I mean, neither of them. If Little Red Bot was on there, and I don't know if you'll end up hearing this. He's a great guy, and he knows the true history of the sport, and it paints a different light. It paints the France family in a much different light, and it kind of fits the mold for what they are right now, actually. So with Brian, the way he's run this sport in the ground, and the ratings being terrible, and the purses as being as bad, it's an ongoing litany of issues that the sport has that it could be fixed if they actually did something about it, but he's never gonna.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm gonna plan on getting the book on my reader, but what has a better personality, Paul Menard or the Spanish announce table? I'm gonna say Spanish announce table. They get more action than
but
Paul. Ooh,
yeah,
I just said that.
the Spanish announce table definitely gets more action than Paul Menard has I remember going to an autograph session when I was a kid at some armory or whatever, the Woodbridge Armory, and Kevin Nash was there, and he was one of my favorite wrestlers back then. And Tito Santana was there when he was still working the Spanish announce table, and I had the balls to ask the guy, I'm like, so what does it feel like every time somebody flies through your table? I rendered Tito Santana speechless. I think he wanted to punch me, honestly, but I was 14 years old. So really, he was in between, but he really had no answer for that, because it always happens. And now, whoever they have, Roberto Rodriguez, this guy, that guy, they all fly through the table. And that table has more personality than Paul Menard. But he has 3 top 5 finishes. And RCR has no top 5s on anybody else in the Cup car. So,
yeah, I agree.
now it's such a shape. That billionaire's money is finally helping Paul Menard.
Okay. Does Ryan Newman have a neck? We talked about that. No. If so, has it seen the sun since Penske? No. Will Clint Boyer scratch his itch by spinning his fiancée into a fence before his honeymoon? I think he got married and expecting a kid. Hello? Hello? "15 minutes of the podcast was unusable, so I had to delete it. All in all, it was a fun podcast, and I'd like to thank Phil for being a very good co-host. These are the plugs. Join geeksoftheindustry.com. They have 10 shows, including ours. We have Geeks of the Industry, the flagship show with Chunky Larry and Loco Cola. They talk about pop culture. And there's 2 for Flinching with MSR and Chunky Larry. They just talk whatever they want. Chatosophy with Chunky Larry, that he'll also talks whatever he wants to talk about. We have 3 wrestling shows. Mega Powers Radio with Chunky Larry, MSR, and Reanimator. They talk about wrestling. And also Wrestling with Smut with Reanimator and Natalie. They talk about wrestling and porn. Ooh. Pro Wrestling Nation with Funky Sam Medina. He interviews local indie wrestlers from his state of California. And if you're into video games, there's Cartridge International with Evan Hill and Bernard Binder. They talk about video games, of course. There's Sleep Notes with Felinius Punk. He talks about his albums. There is Mr. Know-It-All with our co-host Barrow. He just talks about whatever he wants to talk about. And also there's NXT Cast with Chris Nixon, Felinius Punk, and Bernard Binder. They talk about the developmental system of the WWE. There is Turnbuckle Throwbacks from the current to way back with Phil Rea and Dave Megapowers. There's also Shining Wizards. They talk about the week of wrestling. Answering the 10 Count is also about wrestling. If you're into old school wrestling, there's Butts with Seats with Evan Hill, some guy named Frank, and Josh Armour. They talk about WCW. And Josh Armour also hosts Wrestler Radio Australia, Australian podcast about Australian wrestling. Shoot the Defense is a soccer podcast, if you're interested in that. And Bloke Show is just a pop culture podcast with AJ Maggett, Lee Moats, and Punch Rockwind. So check those shows out, and that's about it. Facebook.com/groups/NASCAST500. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, that is at Elizabeth Moxley. On Phil's is at Phil G. Mathew. Just 1 T, not 2. So in any case, I am Elizabeth Moxley.
Drinking dens are spilling out and staggering in the square. There's lads and lasses falling about and a crackling in the air. Down around the dungeon doors, the shelters and the queues, everybody's looking for somebody's arms to fall into. That's what it is. That's what it is now. Here's frost on the graves and the monuments, but the taverns are warm in town. People curse the government and shovel hard food down. Lights are out in City Hall, the castle and the keep. The moon shines down upon it all, the legless and asleep. And it's cold on the toll gate with the wagons creeping through. Cold on the toll gate, God knows what I can do with you. That's what it is. That's what it is now. The garrison sleeps in the citadel with the ghosts and the ancient stones. High on the parapet, a Scottish piper stands alone. And high on the wind, the Highland drums begin to roll. Something from the past just comes and stares into my soul. Cold on the toll gate with a Caledonian blues. Cold on the toll gate, God knows what I can do with you. That's what it is. That's what it is now. Candlesticks still writing songs in the wee house on Charlotte Street. I take a walking stick from my hotel. The ghost of Dirty Dick is still in search of Little Nell. That's what it is. It's what it is now. That's what it is. What it is now.